Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com where music comes to life. And my guest today is the organizer of what is undoubtedly going to be a fun weekend. The RockNPod Expo takes place March 17th through the 19th in one of my favorite cities, Nashville, Tennessee. It's a convention, a concert, a trade show, and so much more. Joining me to talk about it and let you know how you could attend, please welcome Chris Czynszak. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me on. It's great to meet you.
Oh, my pleasure. And, there's a lot to talk about, but let's start with the music fan who's looking to escape on a cold March weekend and head to Nashville. What could they expect if they get a ticket to Rock and Pod?
Yeah, so for the fan side, there's a lot to offer. There's going to be a great concert the night before the convention on Friday, March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. We'll be at a place called Eastside Bowl. If you're familiar with the Brooklyn Bowl chain, it's similar to that. It's a music venue, but there's also bowling lanes and a diner, and it's a really cool venue. It's pretty new here. But there's going to be what we call a rare hair show, and my friend Tyson Leslie, who plays and manages Vixen, he puts these together with it's like a full list of pro Nashville musicians, and they're going to be backing up different expo guests that we've brought in for the weekend. So it's a bunch of great cover songs, some deep tracks. Some of our guests, including Jason McMaster from Jason McMaster from Dangerous Toys, and Stevie Rochelle from Tough, and Eric Martin from Mr. Big, are all going to be jumping up on stage and doing a couple of songs. And we had a great time last year doing this, and I think it'll be great again this time. And then Saturday is the RockNPod Expo, and then with the convention, it's a mix of things. It started off more as just a podcaster event, with podcasters coming to network with each other, but also, it's still that, at base, but there's like podcasters we even have a podcaster coming from England for this one. So there's music podcasters come in and they set up shop, they record all day, they do interviews with the artists that we bring in. But if you're a fan, you can kind of see how this gets done. There's also going to be panel discussions and live one-on-one interviews with some of our guests, including Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister. Eric Martin's going to do one. We're looking at doing a panel on the Decline of Western Civilization Part 2 movie, because some of our guests were in that film. So I think it would be kind of cool to have their memories of making that film. Also, tons of vinyl memorabilia, toy, comic vendors. We've really expanded this time, because I've got a partner coming in who's also doing a pop and comic convention the next day. So some of those vendors will be doing both days. So it's not just rock and roll. It's kind of pop culture, nerd culture, I guess is what you would call it, because we're all nerds anyway, right? So a lot of signing sessions, meet and greets with fans. It's a very fun hang, and most of the guests just hang out all day. So they're very accessible. It's a little bit less stuffy than a typical convention where everybody kind of is herded around like cattle. I think it's more loose and open. And then Saturday night is Keel Fest 2. Ron Keel has a label called RFK Media. He's going to have his Ron Keel band. The members of Keel are going to perform a reunion, a sort of reunion of Steeler with Rick Fox and Mitch Perry on guitar. Also, Crashing Wayward from Vegas and The Fifth from North Carolina are going to make their debut Nashville performances. They're both really great up-and-coming bands. And then Sunday, we have the Comic and Pop Culture Convention going on throughout the day at the fairgrounds. And then we just announced it, a thing called Punchlines and Backlines comedy show. And it's comedians Courtney Cronin Dold, Craig Gass, and Don Jameson from That Metal Show doing stand-up sets, but also Eric Martin will be doing stand-up for the first time in his life. And then that's followed up with a full live acoustic show from Eric Martin and his bandmates. And then we have a movie screening thing we're going to announce probably later today, but that'll be a screening of the home video from the 80s Kiss Exposed, with the comedians doing kind of a Mystery Science Theater type commentary on it.
Honestly, I think that could be the highlight for those of us who are old enough to remember Kiss Exposed. A comedic take on it is probably much needed.
Yeah, there's a lot of unintentional humor in it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll bring all of that. We did Kiss Meets the Phantom last year, and people really love that. So we'll stick with Kiss and do this one too.
And it's funny, Eric Martin doing a stand-up set. Eric's a buddy. He's been on this show a bunch of times, and I think unintentionally funny kind of sums up Eric at times as well. So that should be fun.
Yeah.
But you mentioned during the day a lot of the guests will be around, so they will be accessible. Like so,
Yeah.
if you go and spend the weekend there, chances are you're going to be able to say hello and get an autograph from a favorite.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of them will have like
Mm.
their own, merch tables, and
Yeah.
they'll be doing meetings with fans all throughout the day. And then some of them just like to walk around and catch up with their friends because with all the guests we bring in, it's kind of like a family reunion for them. So it's just fans and rockers just getting together, kind of celebrating the music that we love. And the most important, I mean, obviously, I try to make it a great event as far as networking and business and stuff, but it's just a great hang. I mean, everyone just has a great time, and it feels like our family just gets bigger every year.
Mm. And now let's back up a little bit. How did this event start and how have you grown it over the years?
Yeah, so I've been doing music podcasting since 2011. This is my 12th year doing it with my co-host Aaron Camaro. We have a show called Decibel Geek, and just over the years, especially back in those days, it was mostly Skype that we all would talk to each
Mhm.
other on, and I would get to know these other podcasters because, as you probably know, one of the tricks that's different than radio is work with each other, appear on each other's shows. It helps build the fan
Yep.
base on both shows. So we would have all these great conversations, and then I'd be like, "Well, I'd love to grab a beer with you, but I can't do that because you're 600 miles away." And one of my fellow podcasters, BJ Cramp, who does a great show called Rock and or Roll, and actually just wrote a great book on Cheap Trick called "This Band Has No Past." He came to me in 2017. Was like, "Why don't we just try to organize some sort of a meetup?" And I was like, "Well, if we're going to do a meetup, how are we going to pay for that?" And he's like, "Well, we could do crowdfunding." And I was like, "Well, if we're going to crowdfund it, then the listeners that are paying for us to meet each other should be able to come meet us too. And instead of them just coming to meet us, we should, a lot of a lot of 80s rock guys live here in Nashville, and I've
Yeah.
been lucky enough to interview a lot of them. So I just started calling in favors, going, would you come to this and meet fans and do some interviews?" And I got a lot more yeses than nos. And then also vinyl was really having its resurgence around that time. So I was like, let's get some vinyl vendors in there. And it just organically turned into a convention. It wasn't initially going to be a convention,
Mhm.
and we did it through crowdfunding the first 2 years in very small venues and just trying to build up the base. And I wasn't even intending on it being an every year thing. It was just, let's meet up once. But everybody had so much fun. And then by the year two, the artists were also thanking us for putting it together, because a lot of these music podcasts are a great outlet for them to promote their stuff because mainstream media doesn't really cover them like they used to. And then it just from year 3 and 4, it wound up going into like being more of a legitimate convention, going into hotel spaces and stuff like that. And it just grows year over year. Obviously 2020 shut us down with COVID because we couldn't do it, nobody could do anything. 2021 was hard to navigate all that, but we made it happen, and it was as big as it's ever been. And then this year we're going into one of the new buildings at the Nashville Fairgrounds. It's like the biggest space we've ever had. So every year I try to swing for the fences and make it grow. It's like walking a tightrope, and it's stressful, but my wife likens it to pregnancy. It's like
Mhm.
it's a pain, you're exhausted, you say you'll never do it again, then you see the result and you're happy, and then you do it again. So every year I say I'm never doing this again, but I've learned not to take myself that seriously, because once it's over, I'll probably start planning the next one.
Well, and that's the thing, and I think that's why those of us that do this do it is because, we love the music, and as much work as it is and as much work that goes into it, you're always like, okay, what's the next one? What
Yeah.
can we do? And I think, a couple of things you said, the networking part of it, I think is great for, the podcasters and the people that do this to get to know each other and, really kind of work together, I think is really important. But what you said too about the artists, how you got more yeses than nos.
Mhm.
I know like for me starting out, it was basically just sending random emails and messages to artists and just being shocked at how many people said, sure, I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
And everything kind of grows from there. So I think people don't realize that, when you look at some of these artists, they're just like us.
Mhm.
They love to talk, they love to tell their story, they love to meet people who care about it. So
Mhm.
a place like this is a really cool thing.
Yeah, and also for the podcasting side, we've also expanded into content creators of all types, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
YouTube shows that do really well. And to me, it's just, it doesn't matter the delivery system. Is if you're going out and you're promoting rock and you're talking about the history of it, we're interested in you being a part of it. So that's another thing. And then also we have an education track that we're working on. That'll be a separate area of the room that'll have, panels and speakers and workshops talking about best practices, editing, brand, marketing your show, branding, or even gear, how to get into, even just how to get into podcasting, because there's a lot of people that want to, but they have no idea how to start. So that's another thing we've built over the last couple of years is let's provide some real quality info that podcasters and wannabe podcasters can take away from this and make their shows and their brands better.
And now, how can people attend? So people can go to the website and all the ticketing information is there and different levels of tickets and all that?
Yeah, just go to rocknpod.com, ROCK, the letter NPOD.com. That's got pretty much everything on it. If you're a podcaster, there's a registration on there. As of pretty much today when we're recording this, the platinum package is done as far as getting your own table and your interview spots. We have to cut that off at some point, because then the massive task of scheduling all the interviews with the guest takes place. So I'm also wrapping up my guest list this week. But there's other podcaster levels that you can register for. If you just want to come check out the event, go to the education track and get some added benefit from that. We have a cool cocktail mixer for podcasters and VIPs that will happen the night before at the pre-party show. And then there's different levels of tickets. Our 2 higher VIPs are sold out now. There's the lowest VIP is still available. There's plenty of general admission and early admission available. And then we have a few more spots for vendors, but we're just about full on that. But yeah, the biggest thing is if you just want to come and see what is this about, get a general admission ticket. It's only $20 and you can come hang out. And of course, all the concerts around the event are always fun too.
Yeah. And one thing is I definitely have to plug for this event is looking through everything. Your ticket prices are really reasonable. I mean, even going up to the high end platinum levels and all that. I mean, it's a very reasonable ticket for what you guys provide. It's a great event. I'm really bummed that I'm going to have to miss it this year, but we'll definitely be down there for the next one. So we've been spending some time with Chris Czynszak of the RockNPod Expo. The link where everybody could get online will be in this article. It'll be on the podcast, on the website. So definitely check it out. Chris, thanks for taking the time to do this and best of luck with the event.
Oh, thanks so much. And yeah, anyone who's listening or watching, and if you're anywhere near Nashville and you want to come hang out, come out, join us. It's going to be a great time.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.